This is the Page Publishing Book Club. But you knew that. You had to know that. This is our theme song. You know, when you hear this theme song, you know what's happening. You know what's coming. A great show. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Rob Barrett's my engineer. Hello, Robbie. Over there, making the magic happen. And there you are on the other side of our world, wondering, what's in store for tonight? Well, I'll tell you, good stuff, all good stuff. Great authors, inspiring stories, exactly what you are looking for to get going on your first book. You know, we often hear authors talk about how their characters take on a life of their own, how once you get started writing a book, it kind of takes over and writes itself. Garnet Hall would agree with that. He likes making his characters work for him, and they worked really hard on his first published book. It's called Act of God. So tell me more about how these characters got the job done for you.
The way I kind of write is I like to take my characters and put them in situations and see what they do. And so I was struck by the thought, what if something that really unusual, something really miraculous happens and nobody's around to see it? What do you do in that case? How do you discover that it was something that was miraculous? And so that's the situation where I put my characters, and it starts with a plane crash and something very unusual happens, and then that's the adventure is finding out part of that. What sets this book apart is it starts with something that you, the reader, know, but nobody else in the story knows. And so you have to see how the characters themselves discover this and what they do with it. Because it starts with a very interesting scene right at the very, very beginning, and for most of my readers, it's very ethereal, kind of a feel to it, and everything takes off from that point.
And basically, it's a tale of hope. And
yes, my main character, his name is Alan. He's sort of a lost soul. He thought he had everything figured out. He lived and worked. His family was up in Warrenton, Virginia, which is up near the seat of power at Washington, D.C. And so he thought he was going to pursue political gain. From high school, he goes to Georgetown University, but then his circumstances changed, and it's a reversal of fortune kind of a thing. So he had to drop out of college. And now what's he going to do? Because everything that he thought he was headed toward is now dashed. So he tries other jobs. He's a logger for a while. He works as a bouncer. He does a few things like that. But nothing seems to fit. He's just bouncing around. And then he lands a job as a private investigator for a firm. And now he kind of likes that because it's mysterious. He gets to interview people. He reads people very well, so he kind of has a hint of whether they're lying or telling the truth, or whether there's more to the story than there might be. Might be that the person is just telling you outright. And then he gets a call in the middle of the night, and he's called upon to go to Lexington, Kentucky, to see about something that started with a plane crash. And that's where he goes, and that's where the adventure of the story starts. Or I guess you could say continues.
Okay. You got any advice for people who are listening, who are trying to write that first book and just can't seem to do it?
If I were to lead a seminar and tell people, I've heard this statement all of my life, everybody has a story. And so I think that every person should tell the story that nobody else can tell but them. And so if somebody's starting out as a writer, look, write. Think about what you're doing. Practice the skills that you need in order to be a good writer. I'm getting some of this from a friend of mine who is an artist. In art, it's about skill. You write all the time. You draw all the time. And in terms of writing, develop the skills that you need in order to convey what's inside your head out your fingertips to the screen and the page.
Good enough, Garnet. What's your story? I think that's the first question. That's the first question writers have to ask. And then from there, I truly believe amazing things can happen. Tell Them No Lies is a true story of David Buchanan's life. And David, what a life you have had. You were shot 12 times, then became a paraplegic, but it doesn't end there.
Yes, I was a paraplegic for 2 years.
I didn't know people could recover from that.
They said you couldn't, but I made a full recovery.
Tell me your story. I mean, you got involved with drugs.
I grew up in Oakland, California.
Okay.
And my parents were addicted to drugs, and I kind of followed their lead and got addicted to drugs as well, but not addicted to using them. I took another route and sold them since I saw what it did to them by using them, I tried to do the selling. Cocaine, rock cocaine, soft cocaine, marijuana.
This led you to murder?
Yes, I started doing it at 10 years old, and it led up to me being in a situation where I was accused of murder at the age of 20. Went to trial on the case, me and a close friend of mine. He got convicted and I got acquittal. Spent 2.5 years in jail fighting the case until they released me. But when I got out, I decided to go right back to the same place all these things happened at, and that landed me into being shot 12 times. And I made a full recovery after 2 years of being a paraplegic, wheelchair, paralyzed from the waist down, behind a bullet that's still located on my spine. I was able to walk again.
So you finally decided to turn your life around, basically?
Yes. Well, after being a paraplegic, it was almost no other choice but to, because I couldn't do nothing. I had to depend on others to do everything for me for so long that once I did recover, I didn't want to let them down.
So in writing this book, are you hoping to help kids like you?
Exactly. I'm hoping to get them to see a different route, as well as I had more kids of my own who have never seen this part of my life. Because once I've changed and I have other kids now, they never seen Dad like this. They didn't know about this about Dad. And that was another reason for me to write the story, to send the message to my own kids.
All
So
right.
it was more than just about some money for me. It was more so about getting the message out to all those who might even try to go this route.
You know what, David, what I always wonder about people, kids that are born into a home where your parents are doing drugs, how are you supposed to know any better? How do we help those children? How do you stop that cycle when kids are born into the family and it just kind of repeats itself over and over again? How do you break that chain?
That's a great question. And for me, I believe the way that the chain is broken is almost with the individual themselves. It's almost a learning lesson, because when your parents is doing that, you almost have no other choice but to be curious or to try it. Because, these are the people that you look up to. These are the people that take care of you. So if they show you that it's okay to be done, it's almost a must that you at least try it, curiosity about it. And that's really what happened for me. But at a certain age, the curiosity didn't go to wanting to use them, because I seen how bad it was bringing them down.
Right.
So it's for each person himself. Because I have a sister who never tried them, never wanted to sell them, and just seeing that all I can do is the right thing. I didn't go that route, but each individual would take it on their own reconnaissance on what they want to do with the situation. And I chose the wrong route, but it's many other people who don't take that same route. It's very much possible to stay sane and do the right thing. It's not going to be easy, but it can be done.
Well, I'll tell you what, David, you're one lucky man. You are one lucky guy. Linda Lindsay, mother of 2, grandmother of 4, caretaker of more animals than you can wrap your head around down there in Okeechobee, Florida, where she wrote Sooty, Me, and Daisy Makes 3. All right, Linda, who inspired you, your kids or your grandkids?
Actually, it was my mother. My mother kept saying to me, you should write a book about all these animals that you have and I do a lot of rescue with animals. So I have done raccoons, squirrels, armadillos, horses, cows, dogs, cats.
Wait a minute. You've rescued squirrels and raccoons?
Yes, I get them from the wildlife sanctuary when they're still what they call pinkies, with their eyes shut, and bottle feed them every 2 hours, because they don't have any nighttime volunteer staff. And obviously with babies being that little, they have to be nursed every 2 hours. So
do you then release them into the wilderness?
Yes, I have doggy doors all over my house, and I have squirrels that come in through the doggy doors. I have my raccoons will still come in and visit once in a while.
So what's your book about?
I used to be a truck driver. So at one of the mills that I was at, this little baby pig got ran over by one of the trains. Not hurt terribly, but enough to where it's like, oh my gosh, I got to rescue it. So I take him home. He's less than a week old. I can't get him to nurse. I can't get him to eat. So my husband was eating a plate of chili, and he said, watch this. Let's see if this works. And he puts the plate of chili down on the floor. And Sooty jumps in. He was so small that he jumped in the middle of the plate, and he was just eating up this chili as fast as he could possibly get it down his throat. So that's how the book started, with Sooty loving chili to eat. And then I actually had hunters ask them if they found a little female piglet to bring it home to me, because I didn't want Sooty to be alone because he's blind in one eye. So Daisy came out wild too. They got an acre and a half that live in the back, and we left it natural so that he thinks he's in the wild.
So you bring Sooty and Daisy together.
Yes.
And who's Miss Bella?
She's just a farmer. She teaches them about how to do a garden, teaches Sooty how to root up the soil. They learned to count to 4, and they learned tomato is red, corn is yellow, green beans are green. And they learn to eat all kinds of different foods, because Miss Bella, she wants him to learn how to try new foods all the time, not just to go, ooh, I don't like it. So that was one of the points I was trying to get across, to be adventurous,
How are your grandkids reacting to this book?
My oldest grandson loves it. The level of the book is for very, very beginning readers and your autistic children and your Down syndrome. I have got a girlfriend who does a lot with them, so she asked me to make it simple, because she said nobody writes for autistic and Down syndrome children. So that's what I did. I tried to make it simple and pleasant and happy. And
Just in time for Christmas.
well, I hope so.
Right?
I hope so, yeah.
Are you promoting the book on your own at all?
Yeah, the Commerce down here wants me to present the book, so it's going to be in the newspaper here. And then my library, I'm going to donate a book to the library, and other places in town where children are.
Are you going to write other children's books?
Yes, I have book number 2 already written.
There you go. All right, Linda, sounds like you have a lot of inspiration there. Probably never know what's coming through those doggy doors. And you know what? You never know what's coming up next on the Page Publishing Book Club. An author, obviously. I get it. All right. But wait till you hear about a woman's personal crusade against group homes in Florida. One man's journey from having it all to the depths of despair, and the gift of writing that keeps on giving. Stay with us.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
We're back at the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. A true story about Jeanette Roscoe's daughter, who was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder when she was 4. Then she was diagnosed with spectrum autism disorder. As if that's not enough to deal with in her book, entitled Silent Inflictions, she talks about how her little girl, who couldn't speak and eventually became violent, had to be put in a group home where unspeakable things happened, and Jeanette wound up going on a crusade. How you doing, Jeanette? You know, I can't even imagine having to face a situation like this.
I was a single mom, and my mother was right by my side. Mariah, by the time she was 3.5, she would self-mutilate herself. She would bite on her hands. She would pull her hair. She would scratch her face. Oh, it was horrible. And then the older she got, of course, then the stronger she got, she started to get me, attacking me then at this age. And so by the time she was 9 years old, it was just too much to handle. And at that point, we sought out a group home, and I had to make that decision. And it was just, for a mother to place her child in a group home, of course, made me feel worthless and less than a mother. And at 17, she was tortured by staff members with a clothing iron. Then I took her out of the group home right away, of course, and my venture was to let people know and to be my daughter's voice and to let parents know that they're not alone, and if they do decide to put their child into a group home, to really research group homes thoroughly, from the demographics to the staff, to their education, and how much they're involved and how much care they take of their clients.
Yeah,
And
you got to be on top of them all the time.
exactly, you
Yeah.
know, and make periodic visits.
So are you
You
fighting
know.
to get more restrictions or to get better oversight of group homes?
MedWaiver in the state of Florida and Tallahassee, what they did do, and I did fight with APD, Advocates of Persons with Disabilities. We fought together essentially in Tallahassee for MedWaiver to do a sweep through the state of Florida and to check out all facilities, group homes, lockdown facilities, and institutions. Come to find out, there were over 150 group homes shut down. And every group home in the state of Florida, they all got investigated.
This is because of the issues that you raised.
Yes.
Good for
I mean,
you.
I got a lot of grief. I got a lot of grief online and social media. You know, how can people close down a group home and then other children have no place to go, and here employees are getting fired, and how, you know, can you do this to a person's livelihood? And I always responded with, I don't care if 10 people or 20 people lose their job in a group home, at least I saved one child.
So is this fight going to continue? Is this book part of that fight and something that's going to continue for as long as you possibly can do it?
Yes, because I do intend on writing a sequel in regards to staff members that were involved with Mariah's torture. To me, it wasn't enough punishment, consequences. And my next book is going to be called Silent Judgment, which is going to go into who actually did it and their sentences and the courtrooms and how they went back and forth with their public defenders and whatnot, and go from there.
All right, Jeanette, you sure have found a purpose, I'll tell you that. Talk about a guy who had it all. CFO of the largest reinsurance company in the world, educated with a master's in finance and accounting. Alan Head never thought he'd write a book, but his life over the last decade turned out to be so unbelievable, people said, you got to write a book. And now we have on both sides of the street. Alan, you say unbelievable in a good way and bad way. How so?
What? I'm sorry, what do I mean?
Yeah.
You know, very successful, great children. The sky was the limit, really, and I guess I self-imposed limit. I was to be promoted to global CFO and moved to London, but I chose not to. Probably could have been president, not of the country, but of the company.
Okay.
And I just chose to take a different path in hindsight. Not quite sure why or if that was a smart move, but then a series of events started occurring, tragic events, life-changing events. In late 2004, I decided to semi-retire. I wanted to change directions in life for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I guess I was burned out. Lots of traveling, so I bought a big house, mansion in Atlanta, and my children from my first marriage lived in Greenville, South Carolina. So it kind of, you know, in Atlanta I could still stay with Swiss Re, but my children from my first marriage were closer. I had begun a family with my second wife, who was from Argentina, 16 years younger than me. And my first son from my first marriage was diagnosed with myoblastic leukemia. And to make a long story short, we chose Duke University Medical in Durham, North Carolina, to have a bone marrow transplant for Landon, who is Brandon in the book, which went fine. But after a couple of months and waiting for the transplant to take root, so to speak, within the bone marrow, he developed liver disease from the high doses of chemotherapy and radiation. It couldn't be reversed, and I watched him die, me and my first wife. So that was a life-changing tragedy. He was 1 month from 16.
Oh, my God.
And watched him die right in front of my eyes. So that began a series of entropic disasters, some self-inflicted, some not. And I think the book, you know, certainly touches on all of these. We're not talking 2 or 3 tragedies. We're talking several, many. In any event, I think the lesson learned from the book is how to face adversity, tragedy, life-changing events, and how not to. And in my case, how not to. I've survived, and hopefully be better for it. I grew up in East Tennessee. A lot of the book takes place in East Tennessee. Atlanta was home for quite a while, many years, as well as Fairfield County, Connecticut. But it also takes you to many places within the state, also London and Zurich, and ultimately Central America, as in Belize. In fact, the book ends in Belize in a fairly shocking way. And I have escaped Belize, thank God. And second book is about that transition. But in any event, the first book ends there in Belize in a pretty shocking way. That's all I'd care to say at this point, but I guess. So in a nutshell, the book is about a man's life that was both fantastic but also tragic, who's happened to be my life.
That's the thing that's really getting me. I talk to a lot of people who write books, and most of us don't have very dramatic lives, really.
I'd say the norm is that, one or two really life-changing things, usually bad, right, happen to a person through one's life. But I've had many more than one or two.
Right.
So
And
I've had my share. So I think I could really touch on them in a meaningful way. And also along the way, put in a lot of historic perspective, the events that occurred over the half century of my life. Also quite a bit of political, geopolitical, and economic editorial commentary as well.
this makes me think about, when you think things are really bad in your life and your mom or your husband or your wife or somebody says to you, no matter how bad it is in your life, no matter what happens, there's always somebody who's got it worse. There's always somebody dealing with something, and you're definitely not alone. I'm looking forward to that next book, Alan. I guess I'll be talking to you next year. All right. Finally, Gail Pate has always written, mostly poetry. This was her first time writing a book. It's called The Light, and you say you were inspired by your niece.
She's probably more like a granddaughter than a niece, but I knew I wanted to write something for her, and a story. So that's kind of how it started, was to write something for her and something that along the lines that I enjoy reading. So I knew that I wanted it to be a sci-fi fantasy type book, and I knew the character, I wanted her to be around 16 years old and a strong-willed character, something that my niece would identify with. And
So what'd you come up with?
well, she's a young girl that goes on vacation with her aunt in South Carolina on the beach, and while she's there, some strange events start to happen, and there's a boy that's staying next door, and she finds out that he's involved in all these strange events, and the fish are starting to die, and she sees strange lights that are in the water where there's no explanation for, and she decides that once and for all, she's going to find out what is going on and how Ben is involved in it. So she decides to follow him into the water and discovers that he is from a different planet and is here on a survival mission. And it's just a mystery that will take the reader along her adventure in discovering what these mysteries are and what Ben has to do with it, and really what her fate is. So,
Has your niece read this?
yeah, she's read it. She's enjoys it, and we're excited to see other teens that are enjoy reading it too. So,
Are you doing anything on your own to promote your book?
yes, we have been doing some local art and craft events. We were involved with an event at the local library where there were several authors that were there to promote their book, and we are doing a book signing at one of the local new little bookshops that have opened in our area. So we'll be doing a book signing there. So yeah, we've been kind of busy doing that, and that's been fun too.
That's great. Are you going to keep on writing?
Yes, I have started the sequel to The Light. I'm probably a couple chapters in, so hopefully sometime next year we'll have that available. And then there will be a prequel as well. So there's a couple in the works.
Good for you. You're on fire.
It really didn't start out that way. Like I said, I wrote the book for my niece and really didn't intend to do anything with it other than write something that I could hand down to her. But others have read it, and with the encouragement and support of that, we've decided to let others maybe enjoy it. So that's kind of how it's evolved.
How did you find Paige?
Well, we had thought about traditional publishing houses and had sent them our manuscript a couple times to a couple of them. And then we talked to people about self-publishing. And I actually just saw an ad about Page and thought, well, we'll just check into it and see, it's somewhere in between self-publishing and one of the big publishing houses. So we called, and it's been a pretty easy process. They've walked us through it. Any questions? So we're very happy.
Gail, I love it. I'm telling you, I love it, Rob. I love this. This is a great example of what can happen with the simplest effort. Gail just wanted to write a book for her niece. That's all. And now she's got the bug. And she's out there doing her own promotion, and she's already on a sequel. You see, you just never know where taking a shot at writing might take you until you try. And we're going to try and bring you as much information, as much inspiration, as much motivation as we possibly can next week and every week here on the PPBC. For now, Rob and me, we got some shopping to do. We got to get out of here. Some people to say, Rob, let's go check out the tree. Have you seen the tree in Rockefeller Center? Oh, come on. Let's go. Come on. Come on. And you check out what you think you might want to write about. Then download us when you want, or come back next week for another edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Same time, same place, 710 WOR. Have a great weekend.